And I believe that's that. Crikey. Yeah, I think we should have sound. We should have all of you saying hello in the chat. Hello, it's Rail Natter. It's episode 170. What went wrong at the National College for High Speed Rail? Hopefully this will be a bit of a discursive episode. I've not necessarily got a huge amount of slide action. Borislav, hello, have I come to the right place for Tatra locomotive appreciation? You might as well have, Borislav. Oh, are you getting this sound through the new microphone? I hope you all are. Yeah. Anyway, it's episode 170, which means we've got to of course tip our hat to what for me when I was growing up was the new train, because I grew up with 158s as my local train, and here we have what was the branding of them at the time as well. It's the it wasn't Stagecoach, National Express Group owned ScotRail, and they had this weird red, pink and green sort of quite 90s-y vibes, but transferred into the early. That's the sort of colours you'd expect a regatta fleece to be, kind of in the late 90s. Anyway, yeah, there we are, Class 170 Turbo Star, looking already dated, even though this photo was probably taken when it was fairly new. Anyway, 17426 is probably one of the trains I catch to Harrogate nowadays. Anyway, they're all down in the north. I don't know why I did a southern accent, because the north is the south if you're Scottish. Anyway, enough of that. We are here, of course, to talk about... Where did I put this? Yes. We are here, of course, to talk about the National College for High Speed Rail, and that's precisely what we're going to do. Everyone. Yeah, I know. It's all good to see you all in the chat. Hello. Yes. Welcome to tonight's Rail Natter.
Tick tock, tick tock. It's 7 o'clock. That must mean it's time for. You got me out of the thing. It's time for Rail Natter. Rail Natter. It's you driving train as well. Rail Natter. Rail Natter. Rail Natter. Because it's me, Gareth Ellis. It's me, Gareth Ellis. It's my show. Rail Natter. Log on. Rail Natter. It matters. It's about trains. Log on. And what fresh hell have we got this week?
Anyway, yes. Thanks, Tim. You just sent me that on WhatsApp the other day. It's quite something. Anyway, yes, a very, very brief bit of news because it's happening right now. Yes, the DFT is attempting some weird stolen valor shit on Japan's high-speed rail network. Somehow they're trying to, like, full speed ahead. Transport Secretary Mark Harper took a ride on a Shinkansen bullet train in Tokyo to see some of the benefits high-speed rail could bring to the UK to provide better access to jobs around the country and grow the economy. We have a high-speed rail project. We have one. You have been... we have it. It's existed for 14 years. We could have completely built it by now if we weren't a useless country. And your government has presided over its complete destruction. It's just slashing it to shreds. What? You on about, man? Anyway, he's currently getting ratioed because I replied with that level of frustration, and as of, I don't know, 10 minutes ago, approximately 10 times the likes to my tweet to the DFT one. Sorry, DFT. Yeah, it's always fun to have small schadenfreude from the hell that you put us through with the weird tweets like this. Anyway, oh my goodness, it is like they're saying, oh, imagine if we had a high-speed rail project, and they want to remember nincompoops like this, snollygosters like Mark Harper, want to have their own empire. They want to create their own thing that they get remembered for. So even if we ignore Treasury, at a base level, they don't want to deliver someone else's project. But this is absolutely incredible. Anyway, enough of this. Absolutely enough of this. We are going for small face. Let's get me in the top corner. Hello, everyone. Oh, by the way, before we press on, let's go Big Face. Hi, it's Big Face. Did any of you notice our new guest in the corner of shot? That's right. It's Miles. Miles, they, them. Actually, if anyone works for East Midlands Railway and can get a name badge, an official EMR name badge printed with Miles brackets they, them, it'll be on the EMR. You're getting a big plug because I think Miles is genius and I love Miles and we all love Miles. This is a pro Miles podcast. This is a pro. Yeah. Shout out to our non-binary pals. Miles, Miles is absolutely coded NB. And so I want a Miles they them badge. So if anyone works at, or knows someone who works at East Midlands Railways, make it happen. Anyway, I digress. I just wanted to introduce Miles. Here is Miles hanging out behind us. If you happen to run a railway company and you do fun stuff that might end up in the back of a RailNar episode permanently, then it can happen. So there we go. You know the person who made this happen, you know who you are. Thanks, because it's fun and I like that sort of thing. And we want to collect all sorts of chaos behind us, more and more chaos behind us for RailNars. This is good fun stuff. Anyway, right, I digress. Let us talk about the High Speed Rail, National College for High Speed Rail, which is what its previous name was, which is already a bit of a mouthful. So, what was it? We're going to start at the start, because, you know, we like to go full Socratic method. What was the National College for High Speed Rail? Gareth is asking, who is Miles and what's the story here? This is not a sponsored post, by the way. Everyone in the chat explain Miles to Gareth, please. Thank you. Anyway, you're right. I need to get Bessie's little sort of stuffed toy badger. I've completely blanked. It starts with a Arlo. Arlo. I need to get an Arlo in the back. Yes, I need to get an Arlo in behind me. That's a very good idea. I've got the book somewhere. Anyway, I need to get Bessie back on, don't we? Anyway, I digress. I'm getting distracted. Sorry. I'm very dehydrated, which is why I'm so easily distracted already. Right. Anyway, what was it? What was the National College for High Speed Rail? We must start by talking about BAYS. Here is BAYS. What is BAYS? BAYS is the department. Was the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And, alongside, to a lesser extent, DFE and DFT, the Department for Education, Department for Transport, had a plan related to this thing they came up with called the Industrial Strategy. They came up with an industrial strategy. It wasn't much of a strategy, but it was kind of attempting to sort of think about the future. It was a Cameronian, Osbornian... Actually, it was a Vince Cableian type. This was when Vince Cable was a thing. And they came up with an industrial strategy. They wanted a longer-term plan. They wanted Britain to have a bit of to have some sort of plan for the future. Okay, it was woefully lacking because, Treasury, same reason that the Levelling Up paper and the Build Back Better has been kneecapped because of Treasury, but it was an attempt. And so it got this snazzy logo down here, look, this little industrial strategy logo. And off the back of that, the railways got a thing called the rail sector deal. We got the rail sector deal, and in theory, the rail sector deal was giving us two big headline things. One of them was that it would allow the production of more detailed plans and longer-term roadmaps to provide greater certainty. Very good. And it would allow the rail industry to develop and implement a long-term education and people strategy. Two very good things. These were good aims. Which is why you can't find the rail sector deal anymore. It's dead. More on that later. So the history of this. So that was all happening kind of early doors. One of the earlier things that Vince Cable did when he was business secretary, and so off the back of that, in September 2014, we got the announcement as part of the rail sector deal that we would have. The rail sector deal was actually published in December 2018, so this is a little ahistoric. But basically, it was off the back of the earlier industrial strategy, which was an earlier thing. We jump forward to September 2014, and we have the announcement of the new National College for High Speed Rail. Actually, it's going to be two campuses, one in Birmingham and one in Donny. This was it was the Department for Business Innovation Skills, BIS rather than BAYS. They hadn't dumped energy into it, but yes, it was under Vince Cable, and Patrick McLaughlin at DFT as well, and And this was kind of part of, this was, the September 2014 was announced, but actually it was part of a bigger announcement, which was the big, there will be a new generation, that was in December 2014, a new generation of national colleges will lead the revolution in high-tech skills. It's kind of standard liberal stuff, you know, high-tech skills, yada, yada. Actually, the most recent, cannot recommend the most recent Trash Future enough to understand the insidiousness of some of this stuff. Like, it's not that high-tech skills are bad, it's the fact that the hope is that, and this is, the college is a classic example of this, and we'll explain more of this when we talk about what went wrong, is the idea that you do you might do a little bit of very cheap pixie dust sprinkling, and then magical economic revolution will happen, which, as we know, doesn't work like that, folks. Anyway, so jump forward to December 2015. So that's all that was December 2014. December 2015, clouds on the horizon. Already there were 7 national colleges originally proposed, and 2 of them have fallen a year after the announcement. So 2 of those colleges were rejected for having their plans not being sufficiently mature. Okay, fine. But at the same time, you know, a year later, funding was secured for Doncaster's National College for High Speed Rail. So we had secure funding for the new building in Donny, which is nice, isn't it? So jump forward to May 2016, and indeed we have this funding, this kind of confirmation of the funding for overall this much larger package. So the colleges were built for, you know, a couple of tens of million, but there was a much larger chunk of cash available overall for the National Colleges Programme, which is about 80 million quid. And this is so they've reduced from 7 to 5 new national colleges. Do I have a list? I should have. Let me just quickly fly in and check if I've got where I've put my list of them. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, wait a minute. Let's have a look. Yeah, so let me just whiz up here and dump that in here. Yes. So fine. Next slide is so those 5 colleges are these. It was okay. So we know about the National College for High Speed Rail. Lovely tick. There was a National College for Nuclear. There was a National College for Onshore Oil and Gas. Oh, okay. National College for Digital Skills. National College for the Creative and Cultural Industries. Okay. And then these are the 2 rejected ones. So we've already rejected the National College for Wind Energy and the National College for Advanced Manufacturing. Both rejected. I think this one was Hull. Hull? Question mark. And this one, I think, was supposed to be Sheffield. I think. But both those rejected. Gone. So, meanwhile, same time, they've started actually building the 2 colleges in Birmingham and Doncaster. Those start being built. Marvellous. Jump forwards. So that's in, when was that? That was May 2016. By the time you get to end of 2016, these things are built and they're already they're starting to show people around. And indeed, at the end of 2016, I was given a tour of the Doncaster facility. I was invited along with other guests, I think probably because of my role as the chair of the York section of the Permanent Way Institution. No, not chair, sorry, the secretary of the York PWI was invited to have a tour, and they actually asked me if I was interested in teaching at the college, which I was, as it happens. And so February 2017 was when I had my first, the 7th of February, in fact, the day before my birthday. Actually, you know what's funny? I've written 2017. That this shows what happens when you rush these things together. I started in 18, not 17, as you can see by my tweet underneath. Yes. I had a tour, in late 17 when it had opened, and then I was asked to come and speak. To be part of it by the end of the year. That was the middle of the year, actually. I had the tour of 2017, and I was asked to come and join the college in 2018. So I did. I went along and started delivering lectures in 2018 to be part of. I delivered a course called Introduction to Track Engineering, but I delivered other bits and pieces on risk management, a few other things here and there, to a rather empty college, but more on that momentarily. So, so if I started in February 2018, by October 2018, I was not teaching many students. So I was only lecturing couple of times a month. So, I was actually losing money. I was paid less at the college than I was for the day job that I took annual leave, unpaid leave to depart from. But that wasn't the point. The point was I was doing my bit to help further skills, and I was also doing lecturing, which is something I'd always been interested in, and I'm very much enjoyed. Yeah, so here's the FT picking up the fact that supposed to be training 3,200 students a year, the college had enrolled, by this point, just 96. So within a year of kind of really kicking off, it only recruited 96 students. Yeah, not great. So if we jump forward, if that was end of 2018, we jumped to May 19, and the college, oh, by the way, do I have them behind me? I think I do, actually. Hold. Are they behind me? I've got my 2 badges behind me from the college. Actually, I think I might have. Yeah, I've got my staff badge. Look, got my staff. Oh, you can't see because I'm not big face. Let's go big face. Look, this is my staff lanyard because I was a sessional lecturer, and then they cut all the sessional contracts during COVID. So, but I've also got the 2. I've got them somewhere. Where have I put them? I've got my 2 name badges. I'm totally gonna go and find them in a sec. Anyway, I'll do that as bonus content after the credits. How's that? That sounds fun. Anyway, May 2019, the problems were widening, and the confidence in the college was absolutely was not. There was not good confidence in the college, and so the National College for High Speed Rail, which already is a stupid name because it was not a high speed rail college. It was just a rail college. But you have to have a flashy name. Not flashy enough. They decide that they're thinking about changing their name. So they put out a consultation to change the name. And they decide what that name should be in October 2019. I've now been teaching there for, a year and a half? Bit more. And they decide, the flagship rail college, the clue is in what people actually call it, they decide that they're going to call it, that's right, they're going to call it NCATI, what? The College, Advanced Transport and Infrastructure National College for Advanced. Oh dear, yes, not great. What does this mean? I don't know. They didn't know. Claire Mowbray didn't know. Nobody knows. The rail industry that had funded the whole thing, because there was match funding essentially between government and industry, they didn't know. This was a stupid idea. Why did they call it this? The logic was that they'd be able to pull people in other people who weren't in the rail industry, like people who were going to build Heathrow's 3rd runway. Anyway, so yeah, they changed the name. And obviously that didn't go well because things continued to not be good in terms of recruitment. And indeed, come February 2020, not related to the fact that I've been teaching there for 2 years, I got I had excellent student feedback, but the bigger picture of the college was bad. Crisis hit HS2 College hires lawyers to gag Ofsted. That's right, because Ofsted. Hello, Ofsted. Ofsted are a bad organisation. They kind of essentially have to exist, fine, but the fact that schools live and die by Ofsted ratings and it results in teacher suicide is absolutely just systematically demolish kind of what Ofsted does these days and change it, fundamentally alter it and change it. But anyway, that's another story, another episode. Yes, Ofsted rated the National College for High Speed Rail inadequate. Quality of education, inadequate. Behaviour and attitudes, inadequate. Personal development requires improvement. Leadership and management, inadequate. Hell yeah. Adult learning programs requires improvement. Apprenticeships, inadequate. There we are. So, not good. That is not a resounding positive representation of the teaching establishment. I just checked. By the way, before this, I was like, oh no, please tell me I wasn't teaching there between the 5th and the 8th. I wasn't there for inspection. They didn't see my teaching. I was in fact working in my day job between the 5th and the 8th of November. My lord. Anyway, so and they tried to gag this. The college tried to gag this because it was like, no, but they won't. Even fewer people will come to the college. We've got like 20 people in here. Even fewer people come. At this point, by the way, they were offering what I would classify as a scam, which is a certificate of higher education. Which, if you do this, everyone on here, do not do the certificate of higher education, because if you do it, you get that counts as your first degree, and it means you cannot use student finance for a real degree afterwards if you want to go from a Cert HE into, say, a bachelor's or a master's. Do not do a certificate of higher education. And if you do it, it should be funded by someone else. Anyway, other things. So, okay, right, so bad things are happening, because by May 2021... So COVID had already been kind of created some problems through 2020, and that confidence had ebbed away. But also other things. Oh wait, what else is going on with where other things in the railways? I wonder. Because in May 2021, the second National College was officially dissolved. We'd already dissolved another one at this point, by the way, folks. The National College for High Speed Rail was officially dissolved. Jumped to July 2023, and this, as in next month, is when the college will officially cease to exist. Pretty sad times, to be honest. So that's the timeline. Didn't really get anywhere, did it? I would argue that we created a fantastic building with some fantastic facilities and resources, and then proceeded to just waste them horribly. And that's not to say that the several hundred students that did pass through the college were a waste. They absolutely were not. I've taught a good chunk of them, and they were brilliant. But 3,200 was the annual throughput that the college was designed to cope with, both campuses. And how many was it putting through? Less than 100. Yeah, and that number diminished. Yikes. And indeed, yeah, you go to the NCATI website, and it's just a slightly depressing. You can click in and read the statement. Shout out to everyone who's at the college, who, Andrew, Frank, Emma, others who I worked with at the college, who were really nice, who were really dedicated further education practitioners, who were good, actually, and were let down by very shoddy management, and more importantly, let down by Britain, let down by the way that we are and the way that we invest in infrastructure. But what about the other national colleges? Before we get into the meat and the kind of the Q&A on what the hell was going on, what about the other national colleges? So we have the National College for High Speed Rail, which we know is Kaputski. National College for Nuclear, Onshore Oil and Gas, Digital Skills, Creative, Cultural Industries, Wind Energy, and Advanced Manufacturing. Right. So we know that wind energy and advanced manufacturing got binned off. We know they're done. We know that we've lost the National College for High Speed Rail. What about these four here? Well, actually, the National College for Digital Skills still exists, kind of mostly in its intended form. So that's good, I think. The National College for Nuclear, I believe, still exists kind of in its current form. However, the National College for Creative Industries does not. It has been spun out into a watered-down thing, and its name is probably going to end up being lost to the annals of time. And indeed, the National College for Oil and Gas never came to exist. It never actually became a thing. It kind of canned itself off before it ever really arrived. So the National Colleges as an initiative, you'd say, was a complete failure, right? Okay, well, what about the industrial strategy? So that was 80 million quid just thrown up the Swanee. What about the industrial strategy? Well, that surely was a pretty good idea. Well, that's come to something. Oh. The aim of the industrial strategy was to boost productivity by backing businesses to create good jobs and increase the earning power of In the 4 years since the strategy was published, the UK's business and economic environment has changed. Creating and supporting jobs remains the government's central economic focus, but helping to drive growth in existing new and emerging industries is also a priority. Wizard will fix it type stuff. This is why we are transitioning the industrial strategy into our plan for growth and its related strategies. So they've killed the industrial strategy, right? Okay. What about Bayes? Bayes, the creator of all this, the instigator of the industrial strategy, the author of all our pain. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy was replaced by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, and the Department for Business and Trade. One of the things that's slightly more interesting here is responsibility for investment policy has gone to the Cabinet Office. So once again, an over-powerful, centralised, entirely undemocratic part of government there. Okay. So Bayes is also dead. Fantastic. So what went wrong at the National College for High Speed Rail? What actually went wrong? This is the Q&A bit where I'm going to throw up and kind of throw up my face in large form and try and answer some questions and thoughts. Treasury, fundamentally, as you know, treasury is the issue, because you cannot create skills by just training people. You need there to be somewhere that they can go. They need firstly, because they're not going to join a college going, very few people will join a college without there being a destination for what they're doing. Plenty of people do, and we should encourage them to join, further or higher education, because they don't know what they want to do and they just want to try something out. That's fine. But I would generally say, for the most part, particularly for apprenticeships, if you want to grow apprenticeships, you're not going to get apprenticeships. Fundamentally, the way that apprenticeships work, they don't work if there isn't anywhere for those people to go. And in order for those people to have jobs to go to, the companies that work in the construction industry, particularly the railways, need to have confidence about the future. There need to be projects for them to be employing people on. They need to have more than a 3 or 6 month look ahead. It takes 3, 4, 5, 6 years to train up staff. So if you've only got, let's get my large face here, if you've only got a look ahead of like 6 months, then you cannot plan for the future. Companies will continue stretching staff, relying on overtime, relying on contingent labour that has the kind of the minimum level of training to deliver what's needed. You're not going to send people to improve their skills through a college. You're going to go for minimum possible, minimum viable workforce skill, which means going to one of the various outsourcing companies, bringing in people wearing orange who have the minimum of skills, who cost as little as possible, and relying entirely on them. Now, what was that timeline again for the college's problems? Now, overall, so I'm going to go from the biggest down to smaller things as we go on. And feel free to chuck questions my way, by the way. Martin Haynes is saying that the Advanced Manufacturing College ended up being picked up by the University of Sheffield. Yeah, they kind of took the idea and ran with it as their own internal business model, didn't they? For kind of a bit of a department. So do chuck questions in my direction, by the way. It's interesting that the cursed ratio, by the way, 52 to 48%. 52% of you have heard the National College Vice Bill before this, and 48% of you had not. The bloody cursed ratio. Anyway, so let's go. So Treasury, big one. Let's go for High Speed 2. So this was, the college was part of the High Speed 2 plan. It wasn't part of the project, but it was considered within part of the plan, and HS2 sort of were one of the major sponsors of the college, and they saw the college as an important part of delivering the skills to build the project. It didn't end up working that way, partly because the supply chain, they couldn't command the supply chain to send people to the college. They could politely wink and nudge. They could, share a nice meal or two with bosses from various companies, but they couldn't actually make it happen. I wish I should have brought my picture of where I had all the sponsors from inside the college, and it actually says all the different names of the organisations that were involved with and supported the High Speed Rail College. Anyway, so yeah, High Speed 2. Now, bearing in mind that High Speed 2, so by the time that High Speed 2 was we had Oakervee fairly early on in the college's lifespan. Oakervee made the stupid call to mess around with Euston. As we know, thanks to the National Audit Office, that was an incredibly expensive mistake. So screwing around with Euston, that was the beginning of the long road to slashing and hashing up High Speed 2, coinciding with the college essentially going down the toilet, announcing it's the beginning of the end of itself. What was that? Now, that was 2021. I wonder. That's right. It coincided pretty closely with the Integrated Rail Plan and the summary execution of several major parts of HS2, which has continued to happen. They've continued to chop back more and more. I've got colleagues who are being told to... I literally don't care about saying this now. Yeah, I've got colleagues who are working on HS2 right now who are being told to stop work on anything that isn't the direct route into Birmingham. So there are people doing detailed checks, stuff that takes months on bridges for the section that loops around Lichfield to connect up to to provide the railway, at least a connection onto the West Coast Main Line, heading northwards. And that is being chopped. That's currently off the table. That's been taken off the table by government, which is absolutely barking mad and bonkers. Just baffling, absolutely baffling situation. So So with all this confidence in the flagship rail project of the country being wiped out, what about the rest of the rail industry? Because, okay, so I said, okay, it wasn't all about high-speed rail. It was about the rail industry more broadly and the confidence in that. Well, what have we had? We've had, bearing in mind that we taught electrification engineers, that there was an electrification course. Electrification rolling program hasn't happened. TDNS was shoeboxed and shredded. There is we've had electrification projects just being repeatedly scaled back. What else? Okay, so electrification, right. Well, what about the broader rail network enhancements pipeline? It's not been published since 2019. We're at 4 years since there's been any look ahead as to what the long-term pipeline of work, or even that isn't even a long-term pipeline. It's only a few years, but any more than a year look ahead of a pipeline of work. So is it any wonder that the entire rail sector and the construction industry has not recruited at scale and brought people through the college? It is no wonder. Of course, it's no wonder. Adam Evans, you're getting confused. The chopping of the set connection to the West Coast Main Line is the Graham Brady bit is the connection up at Manchester, the Goulburn link to connect onto the West Coast Main Line. No, I'm talking about the connection at the top of Phase 1 that just north of Birmingham connects to the West Coast Main Line. So that's the only connection of High Speed 2 to the mainline railway network that has been chopped. So that means that HS2, those trains will be unable to serve anywhere other than Old Oak Common and the 2 Birmingham stations. That's it. Yes, indeed. Exactly as Michael C is saying. So just hopeless. So, okay, so we've gone, right. Overall confidence in investment low, so companies are nervous to do anything kind of involving growing skills. HS2 being diced as much as possible. So obviously their ability to create interest for contractors has been massively diminished. The rail industry at large, very little look ahead in terms of investment. So all these things, you don't magically send people through a college to just like lemmings off a cliff. People, those kids, those 18-year-olds, they're not kids really, they're young adults. These young adults are not going to join an industry that has no future. And that, bear in mind, that's currently the situation for our rail industry, is that there, from an enhancement and an expansion perspective, there is no future. That's the reality. That's what happens materially. Just because there's generic talk of East-West Rail or the magical electrification here and there, or even Trans-Pennine Route upgrade. The other thing, of course, is that for some of the kind of the core programs, Trans-Pennine Route upgrade has its own training regime and has encouraged apprenticeships, the odd apprenticeship here and there. But those are done, again, a lack of overall coordination. Those have been done through, Sheffield Hallam, although Sheffield Hallam, I believe, are closing their track apprenticeship scheme, for example. So those opportunities are disappearing. And they're disappearing because actually we've seen a contraction in aspiration for the rail industry, and it's incredibly depressing. What about the actual college itself, though? Because it wasn't just external factors. There are plenty of external factors, and I could feel free to lots of questions. Chuck me questions, out my name in so I can spot those questions. But what about the internal issues in the college? Because it wasn't just external issues. So when I arrived at the college and had some chats with very senior people, they were interviewing me and asking me about what I was going to do. I brought up, I kind of said in conversation, obviously there are going to be challenges with recruitment at this point because we're at the end of a control period, and obviously the contractors are not going to be recruiting, they're not going to be expanding their workforce necessarily until they know whether they've hooked onto the big frameworks. And I got blank stares back from very senior management. This is people who are coordinating, bringing people into the college, coordinating with the kind of the big contractors, particularly the Volkers and even then was it Carillion even then still, but certainly it's like Volkers, is Costains, all these sorts, and then the consultancies like Atkins and Arup and ACOM and so on. To get a blank stare when I described the main reason you would not have students coming through the college, it's the end of a control period, it's the end of a network rail control period, a funding period, to have blank stares was, I sat there and I thought, well, this is not going to go well. Now, selfishly, I was like, if it's given me experience teaching, and I get to teach some students, I knew I had some students kind of in the bag. There were going to be students in the bag at that point, and my hours commitment wasn't huge at that point anyway. I was quite happy to do that teaching and kind of brush up on my teaching skills in that. But very early on, it was quite clear that the college was not being managed by people who understood the rail industry, and it was primarily being led by people with a further education background. But even then, I didn't get. So there were some good further education people coming in at a teaching level who I had and continue to have a lot of time for, and they kind of remind me of the importance and the value of further education, and so it's the likes of Andy who had a bit of a railway background and kind of was kind of local to the area as well, and there's kind of again there's this local to the trainers, the teaching staff were a lot of them local to the area, so this is it's a bit of a giving something back to Doncaster, an area that lost touch really with its connection to kind of training new people. Yes, there's still very much a presence from the railways still very much have a presence, an engineering presence in Doncaster with what's left of Wabtec and the likes of Romberg Sursa and Trackwork and others who other railway presences within Doncaster, but that training had been lost, and the college again was an opportunity to be that hub for a lot of the hub for much of Yorkshire and the north really. Again lost, but that went frontline teaching fine. There was a huge amount of way too much high tech stuff. I mean, maybe that's just because I'm out of touch with the way teaching is now. There's so many systems because it was a high tech college. There was lots of computer systems to run everything. It all was a little bit OTT for my taste, particularly when you had 50 people at the college max. But it went further up the top because you had several very highly paid. The CEO Claire Mowbray was paid like 50k more than the Prime Minister or something, so we had several very highly paid people. And I have to say, when you trace you trace the lineage of some of the people who were on the board and some of the people at the top of the college, you start kind of getting a bit conspiratorial. Like, well, what? Okay, so that they let frog to there, then to there. Okay, and Claire was let go and replaced. I suppose the board wanted blood, and Claire Mowbray was the person they kind of threw to the dogs. But I think there was not a great. I don't think it was a great legacy, and for the top level team to have no understanding of the way the rail industry actually worked it was never going to go well. It never was going to go well. Do store up the questions. I will. Tell you what. I'll do a couple of questions now actually. So. Right, what have we got? Master Trams, yes, the Litchfield connection is being chopped. Yes, that's right. Master Trams helped write and complete the SCP timetable for that blockade. Yes, indeed. Been chopped. Zydit. Forgive me if I've not pronounced your handle correctly. I'm an engineering student in Aberdeen. Any recommendations on getting into the industry? Tried internships this year, including Arcadis, and got nothing. Any other recommendations? Oh, God. Well, it's kind of... it's a weird time because the reality is getting into the industry now is a good idea because at some point the morons are going to have to be swept to one side and someone's going to have to realize that we have no other alternative other than to do massive big railway, capital B, capital R, to get us out of our carbon emissions hole. So it's a good time to join the industry. The trouble is, for all the reasons I've just discussed, capitalism means that these stupid companies that I work for and that other people work for aren't necessarily willing to take a punt on the future of Britain's railways. And the companies that, consultancies, for example, are genuinely, the business plans are going, yeah, we're just not looking at the future in Britain. We're planning to expand what work we deliver in other countries, English speaking or indeed some other countries we can get access to. Of course, because Britain's always been fairly insular, we don't have good access into the local European market, Brexit notwithstanding. We don't have good access into the local European market, even though the local European market has really good access into the UK because, for example, HS2 is mostly being delivered by Spanish and French engineers. So, that doesn't mean it's not a good idea for you to keep pushing and how to get in. So in terms of actually getting into the industry, you might find it's easier to go through a contractor to start with rather than a consultancy, because contractors generally have a higher number of apprenticeships and a higher number of internships. So Aberdeen is trickier for sure. One of the other things to perhaps approach Network Rail, see if you can contact someone locally in Network Rail, and see what that might look like. But yeah, being up in Aberdeen, maybe what I'd recommend doing is making yourself available to travel. So consider maybe doing the internship down in Glasgow. If you've got anyone that you can stay with down in Glasgow, you'll find it a lot easier. Aberdeen up a little bit out of it for kind of people other than frontline operational staff. So let's see. Xander, hi Xander. Would focusing on further training for post-degree students or offering rail-related modules in other universities' courses worked out better? E.g., OLE for electrical engineers. Well, they were trying to do that. The trouble is, as a college, it was a bit weird in the way that it accredited things. It took a really because of its relationship to the big apprenticeships push that was happening from Bayes at the time. It kind of didn't coordinate. It didn't coordinate very well with the professional institutions, so it didn't bother to reach out to Permanent Way Institution on a formal, accreditation level, ICE, IET. It just didn't really take this tack. It kind of casually spoke to them, but it didn't establish those links early doors to get accreditation so that those courses could. And agreed. For me, the college could have been a hub for all the different universities to actually do their courses together. It was an opportunity for them. But again, we have a marketized, commercialized university sector, so they all compete with each other rather than collaborate. It's another whole story, isn't it? Lewis Bergen, what actions can people take? I fear that MPs are getting fatigued by the media's view what a railway is and should be compared to what we need. Write to your MP. RailNatter is all about providing you the information, the tools for you to seek out the information and to write to your MP, to equip you to feel comfortable to write to your MP and tell them what the rail industry needs and what the rail network should look like. Gareth is saying, it's a vicious circle. We don't have enough engineers, so we import them, so we're not able to train our engineers, so we import more. 100%. HS2, we don't have the consulting engineers or the contracting engineers to deliver infrastructure like that. HS2 was supposed to, and I said that there's a good interview that it's got very watered, it got very reduced, but I did a good interview for someone in what was it? It might have been the Sunday Times actually, which okay. It was actually a good interview. It was by Laith. Please tell me Laith doesn't have dubious views, but Laith seemed. I went through their Twitter timeline. They seemed fairly all right. Anyway, so so we bring in staff to the high. Sorry, I lost my point. I've now back on my point. High Speed 2 was supposed to be an opportunity for us to kind of get back ahead of things in terms of those railway skills. We continue to be pretty cutting edge when it comes to kind of conventional railways. Network Rail is up there with being at the kind of the state of the art in terms of running a modern railway system, which might surprise some people here in terms of from an infrastructure and a investment kind of an infrastructure perspective. But the I don't know why that arrow is there. What is that? Anyway, I don't know. I'm seeing weird heart thing has appeared that YouTube's just placed. I don't know what that means. What does it mean? I don't know what it means. Anyway. Sorry, YouTube distracted me. No, that's the point. I was supposed to get distracted by YouTube. So HS2 was supposed to allow us to learn those, to grow a skilled workforce, right the way from like people starting in their career to senior, principal, chief engineers, and allow us to kind of get to the point where we can export some of those skills again. And let me tell you the extent to which that has not happened. Partly through this the vicious cycle, the lack of other rail stuff going on, the lack of long-term plan, and the lack of confidence in what HS2 would actually materially look like, and what those contracts would actually look like, has resulted in, and also the push for cheapness from government. Government pushing for cheap. Efficiencies, reduce the costs. Oh, it's dreadful that it's costing so much. Oh, well, means that companies go, well, okay, if you want to reduce the cost of this, then we'll rely on we'll not recruit any new staff. We'll build around a minimum staff proposition. So not good. Right, okay, let's go back to it's crikey. I thought it was going to be a short one. It's already quarter to. Let's go small face again. So was it a good idea? Well, for kind of all the reasons I've just talked about, really. I hint at all the bad things I've said. I've hinted at the fact that, yes, it is a good idea. It was a very good idea. I think it was misused. I think it was not well stitched into the wider industry. Forgive me for using a couple of all the logos here, but this is kind of some of the various professional institutions up here. I've picked 3, but there are multiple universities that are part of Ukraine but even broader than Ukraine. The UK Rail Research Innovation Network. I think that's right, isn't it? It's basically a connecting group of universities that do railway research. But beyond Ukraine as well, universities and colleges that do railway stuff. All of them could have fed into into the National College, what it should have been, which is the National College for Rail, or the National Rail College. It could have been the National Rail College. And to my mind, they should have, NSAR and NTAR, which I find confusing that they both are separate things. I don't know why they're not the same thing. Those should have used the facilities. They should have based themselves, even if it was just their address and they kind of didn't change much, they should have based themselves at the High Speed Rail College, so that this became, the National College for Rail became a focus of skills enhancement for the industry. I mean, to be fair, Neil was right to actually keep the distance. All these things were keeping their distance from the college because they weren't sure whether it would go south. But that's a pretty damning indictment on the situation. But the National College of Rail, as it should have been called, could have been the glue between all these things. It could have been, as a permanent way institution, we deliver our training. We have to hire out space at what's a glorified conference, well, it is a conference centre, the former training centre in Derby, or we go elsewhere. How great would it be if we could have been in Birmingham or in Doncaster a dedicated railway teaching facility, rather than what was a dedicated rail teaching facility and is now just a generic conference centre in Barbados? How great would it be if you could have, as a for example, the PWI could have had its sort of post office, its PO box could have been a National Rail College for Rail, could have been a hub for skills. You could have had, the PWI could have held conferences there, because it's a fantastic conference venue, loads of space, big lecture spaces, really grand sort of keynote spaces with the trains behind. You could do, and indeed did happen. They did lots of research there. They were doing research on the slab track. There was OLE-based research going on. It was a fantastic facility, not just from the skills perspective, but just as a unifier, as a hub for lots of kind of rail stuff. But what happens to all of that? What happens to the site? Doncaster particularly. So the Birmingham site, I think, has moved entirely to become part of the University of Birmingham. So that's kind of, I think they've gobbled that up and it's kind of been sustained. But what about the Doncaster facility? It's a fantastic, really nice. It had a good canteen until they sacked everyone there, amongst other things. It's a fantastic building. Look at it. It's great. It's iconic. It's got this. It looks good. That's fine. We should have nice stuff. The education places should look snazzy. Yes, okay, it's fairly plasticky, but actually, you went in there and it was a pretty grand building. It's a fantastic space. There was it was really, really good. I enjoyed teaching there. There's a lot of facilities, lots of stuff. There was loads of bits of, this was useful for me because I could talk about vehicle dynamics. I could go, there were several bogies from different trains. There were various pantographs and bits of OLE. I could 3D print stuff, so I was 3D printing some S&C here. As you can see, that's I believe a CV13, and this is an H switch there, showing you the size difference between different trains. Anyway, and obviously some Hornby. Actually, this and this are mine, and they're still in the college. So if they bulldoze it with my Hornby in it, I'd be unhappy. Actually, I've got quite a few things in the college still that are mine. I should probably try and attempt to collect at some point. This is some stuff from some mock-ups for the Class 777. They had quite a lot of stuff for looking at accessibility. They actually had these mock-ups to understand accessibility in trains. So there's quite a lot of stuff that you could do. Yeah, and that was indoors. Loads of good classroom. There was classrooms. The facility's really good. Like touch screen doodles. Well, that's not a view you get very often. So I'm now at the other end of the site. Right. So I'm at lunch. I'd start with showing you some stuff I use like this. So we've got 2 tracks and a bit of S&C. See the S&C over here. Anyway, yes, that's me yammering on. There's all the outside facilities. There's loads of stuff. There's slab track. There's there's me underneath the train in the top corner. So that's not outside. That's inside. But there was a pit track that you could actually get underneath the train. They're just fantastic facilities for me to do teaching on. Just really good facilities, and they've all been lost. Very annoying. I don't know why is this. And so actually, the next right, so I use around doing my. Why is it locked out? How interesting. I'm not quite sure why it's locked out. Let me see. Oh, it's just ignoring. Oh, there we go. Now it's not ignoring it. How bizarre. There, good. Yes, anyway, sorry, facilities outside, fine. Actually bizarre. Anyway, fixed it ish, I think. Ella, you've joined. Hello, but you have to just turn the overall volume down. We have a louder mic setup. Everyone who watches this, sorry that the episodes have now got louder, but I've finally got a better setup, so this should be about the same volume as other videos on YouTube now. What have we lost? Well, for me, the main thing we've lost, here's Caitlin, one of my first students. She was a mechanical engineer for... Was she a mechanical engineer? Anyway, she went into train maintenance for TransPennine. And she was brilliant. Liam Wakefield, shout out to Liam, was also really keen, went into Romberg Sursa. In fact, there are two chaps who went into Romberg Sursa. The people that I taught were brilliant. Successive years of students, but particularly the first cohort, were really good. And what's really upsetting is, Caitlin's gone on to have an already fantastic career so far. I haven't looked recently to see if she's still in the industry. I hope she is. Because if we've lost her, that would be absolutely catastrophic. She's brilliant. What's upsetting is that we've got the opportunity for lots of Caitlins, lots of people like Caitlin, skilled, keen young people who who the National College was a conduit into industry, was a modern looking, high tech looking, appealing looking way into an industry that can be quite tricky to work out how to get into, as we're seeing in the chat, but also is quite nebulous to work out how to get into. Whereas the college provided a kind of an obvious doorway. Okay, that gives me some opportunities, and it looked clean, modern, appealing, which is, good God, what we want our industry to look like. Not, I'm afraid, what a lot of railway teaching looks like, which is, shabby arse ends of further education colleges or bits of universities that people have forgotten about. It's certainly at a further education level, but even at a higher education level, even from a university perspective, if you want a railway-specific course, of which there are very few, it's always, I'm afraid, pretty shabby. I think the fact that we're closing that door on the opportunity, not just kind of nationally, but in the region as well, within the north and within Doncaster and South Yorkshire, an area that's pretty neglected across the board, to be honest. And for me, my ability to I absolutely love teaching at the college, and the feedback I got from students was always very good. I just had an absolutely great time. One of my favourite things was when I did the Railway Design Challenge. Was at the end of the railway course, so they'd have there were 6 sessions, of which the first 4 were teaching, and then the last 2 kind of the 2 full days where we'd do, some of it was homework, but 2 full days where we'd kind of do a kind of a grip 2 level, or kind of an early stage, actually not really grip 2, grip 1. We'd kind of just basically do a bit of a railway design. And their challenge was to create a railway that achieved what it needed to achieve with the minimum of, let's call it fuss, but the minimum of impact, but also working operationally and thinking about stations and thinking about all that sort of stuff. And there are just no facilities there's no course like this. There's nothing that looks like this out there. I don't think anyone does a design challenge like that as part of their teaching. You could probably pick one like that. Actually, I know that Northumbria have got a kind of doing a bit of a nominal rail project. They've picked up Cambridge South and are running with it, but there's just a lack of this sort of thing. It's pretty depressing. Yeah, sorry state of affairs, really. Let's go back to Big Face and have a look at any other questions. A few things bouncing through. Zydit, yeah, thanks for the info. Yeah, Aberdeen is pretty isolated for rail. Loads of oil, though. Yeah, don't worry, the oil jobs are sinking and disappearing. Yeah, Peter H. Oh, hello, Peter. For younger people, TfL has apprenticeship opportunities for Crossrail and London Underground Rail Engineering. Yep, for sure. Yes, efficiency savings almost always end up in increased cost down the line. Yeah, pretty often if you don't think about them in any detail. Michael C. asks, do you think there's any chance of the college reopening in the future if/when we get a government committed to delivering a rolling program of infrastructure investment? Well, that's a big if for starters, because what's just happened to the 28 billion that was committed annually by the opposition? Possibly there's discussion of the rail industry attempting to keep hold of it, but who's paying for this? The point is that it's a facility that it's an expensive facility, rightly. It costs money to look after it and keep it going. And all those facilities, all the donations that the industry's made, all of those donations are in the college. What happens to those now? It's just really depressing. Some of the videos seem rather quiet. I know, deliberately made that video quiet, the one there, because it was me gabbling and deliberately me chatting over myself. They didn't do any history stuff, no, Ella. It was all kind of development, kind of jobs in industry. You've taught most of us how to do this well. Oh, right. Through RailNatter. Yeah, RailNatter. You all get the RailNatter university degree. You all get a certificate after watching 200 hours of RailNatter, which I think there were 200 hours of RailNatter about 70 episodes ago. So well done. You're all on your way to a master's degree now. Anyway, right. Okay. Enough of this. Let me get rid of my mug and get on with things. Right. So, thanks to everyone for listening to this in audio-only format. I hope that the audio is better now. It's now a more credible sounding situation now that I've got a proper microphone. As ever, patreon.com/Gareth Dennis for Patreon to support this continue to happen. PayPal.me/Gareth Dennis to also contribute in your own small way, but also you get to throw abuse at me. I mean, to be honest, if you're a Patreon person, you can throw abuse at me as well. You are my producers, Patreon folk. Thanks for continuing to support me. Gareth Dennis, also, your name appears in the end credits, and I do update almost every episode. I will go in and update, so if you subscribe, your name will appear in there. Gareth Dennis.co.uk/Discord for the chat to continue forever and ever. And Graham Howarth, absolutely, you can count this as CPD. And GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merch. The RailNatter Not a Metro sorter is back in there. I've not changed it. I think it's okay. Yeah, if you're really unhappy, then message me about it. But the one I've got is... Okay, so I can't exactly read the text, but it's good enough that I can remember where things are. I think probably the T-shirt and the tops have the print a little larger, so it comes through a bit better. I think the print resolution isn't quite where I'd hope it to be, but it's not. It's okay. So I'm contemplating a simplified version, but I've put it back on anyway, so you can get them if you want to. Anyway, yeah, all that good stuff. Next week, it's episode 171, and it's the 120th anniversary of the windscreen wiper, or the invention of the windscreen wiper, should I say? Because a woman invented the windscreen wiper, and I like. Well, windscreen wipers are great anyway because they're a fun little widget that's fun to talk about. But also, it's for me, it's a bit of a story of. Actually, this might be a pre-record because in theory, I'm supposed to be doing this as a pre-record, and it might be a shorter episode as well. But I'm going to talk about a few things that I think are really important. One of them is because Mary Anderson was the inventor of the windscreen wiper, and she is just never. No one ever talks about her. No one ever remembers, and it's a very common case of women just get erased out of engineering history and continue to do so, to be honest. So it's an interesting little episode. Hopefully there'll be some fun stuff. Essentially, it's going to be me wandering around the museum, just pointing at windscreen wipers and talking about the history of it. But hopefully it will be some interesting stuff in there. But that is next week. In the meantime... I'm going to make my face become large once more when I say thanks to all of you for joining and watching. Thanks to Tim for our alternative episode intro, which I enjoyed very much. And I will see all of you next week. Cheerio, everyone. Cheerio.